It's amazing to me how humanity can be so cruel, but then I'm reminded we can also be so beautiful and kind.
You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Team Member, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself up next. Today's episode is sponsored by book number 2 from Dom Brightman, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. It is the field guide to help unleash the elite performer that is inside of you. Cop it today on Amazon.com or heading over to dombrightman.com and snag it in book, ebook, and audio book, so that way you can take it on the go and get yourself on the go to your northbound success. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North podcast, we got another super special, awesome human tip for you today. That's right, indeed, from this super special, awesome book, baby. That's right, indeed, the fourfold formula for all things wellness. And this is the hat trick. We got our third at bat, baby. That's right, our third at baseball bat, indeed, because she is super special. Also, she's a transformational coach, energy intuitive with a background in bodywork, shamanism, healing arts as well. And she's also worked for the law enforcement for 14 and a half years. So that's right indeed. That's right indeed. She can arrest you and your energy at the same time, which sparked her interest in the healing arts to maintain her own wellness like a passion for life and to make it even better and not butter. She has an advanced studies in self-mastery, which led her to create the soul-inspired to guide others to the transformation and ascension process. And she's also a radio host as well for all things wellness and dates. Let's give it up for the glamorous and soon-to-be legendary Gina Lobito. How you doing today, Gina?
Hi, Dom. I'm doing wonderful today. Really excited to be here and connect with you and your audience.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. We're just two chips off Connect 4. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. There you go. That's right indeed. I also heard the G in Gina stands for golf as well, since, fourfold wellness.
Or sure, it could stand for golf. It's a game of patience and skill. And there's sand traps. There's all sorts of things. You can learn a lot in golf.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. Sand traps especially. That's right. Watch out for the Florida golf courses. The gators come at you. That's right indeed. The gators will meet you.
Yeah. Imagine so. I'm kind of grateful I'm here in California. I don't have to worry about that piece. Just worry about earthquakes.
Well, there you go. That's how you 10x the deed. So, my goodness. So, since it's your first time on Going North, usually try to get the backstory of the guests for the folks listening at homes, in their cars, wherever they're at, currently on the globe, or maybe even in space. Of mind filling us in on how the glamorous Gina got to where she is today.
Yeah, how I got to where I am today. A series of life events, really, that have just were catalysts to my own inner evolution. As you know, I was in law enforcement as a community service officer. So I supported all our sworn officers out in the field and had a lot of contact with the public in various ways. And one of those things that triggered for me was witnessing myself and others in the field, no matter what role we held, was this loss of compassion. And for me, it was like, no, I don't want to lose compassion for people or for life or for myself. And that was one of the major awarenesses I had, and to step into a life of healing arts and supporting my wellness so I could keep my heart open. And I find that is the new way of being, is people learning to live and lead with their heart. And that's a whole different type of shield to live with instead of protecting, right? Because that's in that first responder industries, we want to protect because we're taking on so much of the emotions and other people's experiences, and we're intervening. But what I've witnessed, people would choose unhealthy habits over and over again that turned into no longer supporting their wellness, right? Whether it's drinking or affairs or what have you, working overtime over and over again, whatever's driving somebody to think they're going to maintain their wellness matters, right? And for me, it's become something totally different. As I stepped into more self mastery roles and connecting with my higher self and spirit, all these other things I began to become drawn to, like shamanism. I used to facilitate full moon drum circles, and that was my introduction to working with the four directions and the elements and spirit in a tribal way, a community way, and a unity way, and the symbolism of what it meant to be in circle for each other and to hold a sacred space, not just for myself, but for others that were attending this drum circle. And so I realized how much I was learning just in participating in that once a month. And it prepared me as I went to study shamanic studies program for a year in Santa Fe. And at the same time, I started studying self mastery, which connected to more of the metaphysical pieces, more of the higher ascended masters, and working and correlating those with our energetic body and the chakra system, and how to use that in a way to support me purifying my system. As some might say, shedding the veils and the false beliefs and bringing in the higher self. And really, I recognize today, it's like, wow, it was preparing me for this divine union inside my inner evolution and living life from the heart and soul. And it's this ascension process that is very organic to everybody. And so that's one of the things I realized, wow, this is a very humbling experience because everybody goes through this organic transformation and inner transformation of healing when they're ready to. And so many people now, it's this like, oh, I'm awake. But there's a difference when one becomes awake and then they're on their path of healing, love, and light. Without the healing, the internal healing and resolution and bringing into harmony that and integrating all aspects of ourselves, even the pieces we don't like, because that's just showing us something, to meet those with that aspects of ourselves and each other with love, it's a game changer. And it's an infinite process. However, it's a challenging one, even with the tools of alchemy and awareness and mindfulness. So that's where I really get inspired to support people to, you're having multiple experiences, but let's also bring in your higher aspect as you view these experiences and experience them within your body, within your emotions, within your mental mind and heart. So that's where I've come from. I hope that answers your question, but feel free to ask more if you want some more clarity.
That's right indeed. Funny enough, it's listening to your story actually reminded me a bit of one of our past guests, Kim O'Neill, who actually herself was a crime analyst herself, and then she actually became a positivity slash confidence coach after being there for so long, seeing all those dark crime reports. So it's like, let me get out of that
Yeah,
evilness.
it weighs on you. It weighs on your psyche. I worked a number of years in our records division too, and I had to review reports for the public or for victims or who, or even the DA. And you're not only reading the content, you're looking at photos and things like that, and it does weigh on you. And I started to, not that I didn't lose interest, but to protect myself, I just went to the points I needed to. And if there were certain report requests, I would sometimes have to ask a coworker, can you do this one? Because I just couldn't do it anymore with certain content, you know. It's amazing to me how humanity can be so cruel, but then I'm reminded we can also be so beautiful and kind.
Yes, indeed. More ways than one, no less, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, I went out to Santa Fe for some special training. So, what led you to discover that that was a possibility? Did you find your way eventually in a certain part of California where all the woo woo pops up and be like, hey, we got this training down for drum circle swag. You want to come?
Well, interesting enough, when I started attending drum circles, gosh, it was somewhere in 2014 around there. And it was just out of a metaphysical shop up the street from my house. And the owner had monthly drum circles in the evening time out of the shop. And I just knew I had to go. It's one of those things. Have you ever experienced that, Dom, where you just, your heart, you just get pulled, you're like, I got to go to that. And you don't know why, but you just like, I just got to go. And so something and being part of that vibrational healing with that drum and the rattles and instruments, because then you start to work with sound. And it's an amazing container for anybody to receive and also give. And it will move energy out of your system just as much it'll bring in exactly what you need. I always encourage people to let go of any expectation, go with intention and purpose, but spirit works with you in a very unique way that it's not logical to the human mind. So that's where I started. And then I was interested enough, I was at a birthday party in North Bay, and it was actually a business opening. And I realized, oh, it's also a birthday party. So I looked up the woman. And she was a sound healer, and she works with like different frequencies and stuff of sound, which is really powerful when we get into different states of brainwave states for healing. And I looked her up and I came across a link on her website that she had for the Power Path. And so I just clicked on the link, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to sign up for that program. And it was a 1-year study in shamanism, like an introduction to shamanism with the Power Path. And so it was one of those other things. I just knew I had to go. And I signed up, didn't think about it. Everything was a green light. Yes, yes, yes. And once I started there with Jose and Lena Stevens, and they're very well known within the shamanic community in shamanism, and same with their daughter. And I had no doubt I was in good hands. Because when you start to walk this path and you have mentors and teachers, integrity is a really important thing, especially with anything we do. But with the spiritual community, there are still a lot of growth that needs to occur within it, because it's not a place we're meant to start to let go of our judgments of other people and things in life, and really bring in this higher aspect of there's something higher than us that we are a part of that's happening in the world. And it's not just isolated to the planet or our individual selves or country. It's galactic, it's universal. And we're all in our own time waking up to these connections. It's a soul connection. We're interrelated. And like I was describing recently on the Transformation Network, we're talking about trees, and really the interconnection of trees and how they communicate beneath the soil with the fungi. Like there's all this interconnectedness and interwovenness. It's not just, oh, I root in the ground. There's the earth, there's the minerals, there's the fungi, there's the whole root system, like it just keeps going. And then the trees are constantly communicating, and they're like antennas of the planet, and they hold so much wisdom. They hold the history. So for me, as I've grown in connecting with shamanism and earth-based practices, and we're all connected to it, and have the ability to connect to it in our own way and find that out, what that is for us, it just opens up more and more doors for me as I evolve inside. And I'm starting to recognize, like, wow, we're like permeable membranes, like just energies coming in and out of us, where there's no longer this separation, because we are each other and we are ourselves at the same time. And same thing with the planet, like we are the planet and the planet is us. And how can I grow with it? How can I do my part to heal it and heal myself, and also heal my brother and sisters, my soul brothers, my soul sisters, and support them along their unique journey. So that's how I ended up in Santa Fe. And it was a magical time connecting with animals, nature spirits, myself, like power animals, learning a little bit about plant medicine and how other cultures use plant medicine in a ceremonial way, and the sacredness of all those things, and to be in a collective circle with each other. We had 30, it was cohort of 30. And there's something that happens collectively and also individually. And it's a really powerful thing to expand. I got to expand what it was to hold a sacred space for myself and for others and for the group, and let go of judgment and be this almost like this sacred observer, as I like to call it, the sacred observer of myself, my experience, and also others. But it really allowed me to attune in a deeper way to myself and to my experience with the planet and with nature around me. And I was able to take that and integrate that back into my day-to-day life, because it occurs around us all the time, right? Just like we were talking about, today's like a Sunday driving kind of day, right? How do you roll with that? It's just that simple. How do you roll with that? Is it agitating, or are you just like, okay, I'll just be a few minutes late and I'll be right on time, right? Like it's totally different. I could take those experiences and get really agitated, but then I could come back and like, well, why is that really agitating me? Or how do I really want to be with this, right? Because there's usually something deeper in us. There's something deeper driving our behavior. And when I can become aware of what that deeper layer is for myself and find resolution within it and bring that back into an integrated and a harmonious state within me, then these type of incidences that used to trigger me to get anxious or agitated, that goes away. It goes away. So then you could become this grounded force among what appears to be chaos in our lives, and be able to go, okay, what do I need now? Or what can I focus in? Or is this really something I need to put my energy into, right? Because we can easily get swept up into the chaos, right? And how do I bring myself back to my heart? How do I bring myself back to center?
That's what I'm talking about indeed. I love that wonderful picture that you put into listeners' head, especially mine about the trees being nature's antennas, because it just makes so much sense. I can't believe never even heard that freaking before, because it kind of makes sense. They stick out of the ground like a random old classic bunny ears out of a television. And of course, the fun guy. It's like, oh, it's a whole party under the ground.
It is. It is a whole party under the ground. And every time I have an experience with a tree, I learn something new. I just learned something new. So I encourage you to sit with them and just talk with them and see what comes to you. Because it'll be like a natural conversation. You'll get thoughts in your mind or aha moments. Or sometimes I was talking to a client recently and she was showing me her land that she has, and we started talking about it, and all of a sudden there was no breeze in the air, and then this one tree to the right of us, the branches and leaves started moving, and I'm like, oh, see, the trees communicating, it's acknowledging that we're talking about them. And she's like, what? I'm all, yeah, take notice. I'm all, there's no breeze in the air right now, it all stopped, and that's the only tree moving, and it's very specific toward us. And she's like, oh, wow. And I'm all, that's a way they communicate. They will move for you. They're living, they're live. So the more our hearts open to our connection, you will begin to see the elementals in the earth show themselves. Like when you see faces in rocks, or faces in the wood, or faces even in the trunk of the tree, the way the tree is, that's them showing they feel safe enough to show themselves to you, because your heart's opening, and then you become in this constant co-creation with life, and that begins to open up more and more for you.
Sounds like the tree was happy to see both of you.
Yeah,
That's right. Indeed.
yeah, absolutely.
That's right, indeed. The roots probably would have stood up at attention. So, my goodness, so what would you consider one of your favorite messages from the trees?
One of my favorite messages from the trees. That's a great question, Dom. There's been so many. The image that comes to mind is there's a favorite tree in my neighborhood I like to sit with, and it's that I'm always supported. I'm always supported.
Ah, there you go. So indeed, more ways to
Commitment.
one.
Yeah. And I think that's also a universal message to all of us and those of you listening is that you are always supported in every moment by this unseen world to us that is very close to us all the time, whether you believe in the angelic realm or ascended masters or Jesus or Buddha, those energies and qualities live within us. Even your ancestors that have passed on and people that you haven't even met in life yet that are coming into your life, and even those that have left it in some way, we are always connected and we are never alone in our journey. So, this is where I feel those practices of nature connection, connecting with your higher self, any spiritual practices, whether you breathe and pray or stillness, take time to yourself, right? It's a very organic and special thing for an individual to develop because when you have these practices in place, at your moments in life that seem the darkest, they support you through it to so you can stay in your heart and grounded and not be pulled, even though it feels like you're going to be stretched in every direction and be pulled from the inside out. It has purpose, and you could stay in your heart and trust, like, okay, I know this is part of the process. I know this is part of organic process. And you could go, okay, angels, come help me. Or, okay, nature, I'm going to go walk with you today and help me integrate this, or help me have clarity to see what's happening for me, for my highest good. So it's coming into your transformation from a different, expanded perspective, an expanded perspective, and recognizing, okay, I'm having this human experience. I'm feeling these angry emotions or resentment or joy or what, it doesn't matter which emotions, but how can I also see that from a higher place that's going to empower me so I can stay in my personal power as I make the best choices for myself. And sometimes it's also having the ability, sometimes it's best to not make a choice, which is a choice to do nothing. And so many people, myself included, had to learn and are learning, like, oh wait, there's nothing for me to do here except just allow my emotions to pass through and be in it, but not of it, right? And that's a really powerful thing to learn, but you have support during the process. And so I know in my own journey, and especially as I left law enforcement, undergoing extreme amount of stress that I've ever had. I didn't work for 6 months, and I really delved into these spiritual practices and practices of alchemy and breathing and nature connection and calling in angels and ascended masters, not from a place of desperation, but from a place of like, I just need support through this transformation right now, because I know leaving created a huge space in my life for something else to come in. And I don't know what yet, but to have those tools really complemented even the other things of, like, if we occasionally we might need a therapist, occasionally we need the coach, occasionally we need our nature connection, but to bring all those things and spiritual practices together to work to maintain your wellness and support is so powerful. And then where I bring in is like, okay, that your soul is evolving, and to recognize what appears to be, in my experience, like that dark night of the soul, as some might call it, or this
Mhm.
crucifixion experience, whatever words you want to make, this is actually happening for your highest good on a soul level, on a universal level. And it takes practice and trust to allow it to happen. And then also you're now becoming to make choices in the now moment versus I'm going to plan out my life A, B, C, and D, and this is the time frame, and da da da. The universe has a totally different timeline. Your soul, those of you jumping on your soul path, and it's a different timeline than I could ever describe to you. And it's an experience, because I know for me, one of my biggest things is self mastery in my teachings. And on a self mastery path, it is not for the lighthearted. You will get challenged by nature and life, and it'll start bringing forth occurrences and events for you to become a walking master in life. And you will go through a purification process. And one of the incidences that stand out to me the most when I was working with, because there's rays that we can connect to and have activated within us that are correlated to our divine spark in our energetic body, as we're working on the love ray. And this universal law of opposites will happen. So while I was working with the love ray, I had a very stressful event occur with my neighbor, where he said extremely hurtful things, like hurtful things. And I had to sit with it. And I responded to it. I went knocking on that door, and he came out puffing and puffing, and he was looking for an argument. And my response to him was, I got your email, and if that's how you truly feel about me, I'm okay with that. But I know that's not who you truly are. And it totally diffused this whole thing. For me, all I want is to be more mindful about picking up after his dogs. That was it. Which is funny to have this whole incident happen, and the metaphor of dealing with poop, right? The other people's poop. And then to be challenged with, oh, how can I be love and compassion and still in my personal power? Right? Where I didn't get pulled into what he unconsciously, I would say, was trying to create, which was a fight. But it's really, I started witnessing, oh, he's having this internal fight. And sometimes when we're having our internal, because we all do it, I've had my own battles with that, and it shoots out sideways at other people. But we can recognize, like, oh, wow, what is really here? And to get in the deeper layers. So for me, that was my first conscious example of working with the love ray and activating its qualities within me. But I had to have the experience to practice what that is and what that felt like, until you just become it, until you just become the compassion and the love, and to be able to hold that for myself and other souls that are growing in experiences. Because then it gets in your cells, it gets in your DNA, it wakes you up. It's like muscle memory. Like, are you an athlete, Dom? Right? So, or a musician or anything, you have to practice. You practice, and all these basics, and then all of a sudden you just do it because you got it in your muscle memory. You've rewired your neurological pathways. You have some neuroplasticity occurring. So then we really bring in our physical body to the process of healing, to the process of becoming a walking master and someone that can self-heal, right? Because this is also about self-healing, and those tools, those alchemy tools. Like, one of the biggest alchemy tools I use regularly is the violet flame, and working with Archangel Zaphiel and Ascended Master Saint Germain, who assists me in learning how to use that fire. And these fires are in us all. So that's where I like to really remind people, stay humble in this experience, because it's in all of us. It's those light within you is in all of us. And we so quickly, what I witness and what happens sometimes, people, and I had to catch myself with this as well, can go into this place of like, I'm better than, I know more than you do. And it's not about that. It's recognizing I was once where they were, and I learned how to draw these things out within me and allow these old aspects of myself to fall, my veils to fall, my false beliefs to fall, or the belief systems, I'll say, that no longer serve me, to fall away as I step further into integrating with my soul, integrating with my heart. integrating with my higher self, or I am presence. So whatever name you have for it, it doesn't matter. But when you're recognizing that's what's occurring all at once, and just take baby steps and allowing it to integrate into your system, it's really powerful experience. And that's where I find the ability to hold less judgment or self-correct, because that's sometimes I catch myself for the smallest judgment, just as like, why did someone wear that today? Like, that's a judgment. It can be so minuscule. And how do we recognize that in ourselves? And then remember, like, oh, wait, what am I judging in me? Bringing it back to the self. So that's one of the biggest pieces in my coaching is, okay, let's bring it back to the self. You're bringing, like, someone may bring up a scenario or something, and it's always right now bringing it back to the self and the body. What does that say about you right now? Where do you feel it in your body? Is there emotion connected to it? And that when people start to have that ability for self-reflection and contemplation, this deeper wisdom within them starts to bubble to the surface, and their answers begin to bubble to the surface, because it's also this place of supporting people to no longer look outside of themselves for their own answer, or even to cause blame externally, right? So now we're taking responsibility for our life and accountability in the co-creation and coming into unity within, but unity together and toward oneness, where we're all part of this, we'll say, circle or sphere. We're all within it. So when I do my healing and be me, the more I am in my heart and soul and higher self and do my healing, that means I'm healing you as we're talking, Dom. I'm healing those who are listening that are resonating, or even getting triggered by some of the things I'm saying, because it's bringing something out in them. And then it ripples out. So my love and way of being ripples out into the world, and it uplifts people by me just being me. And the same can go if I go the opposite direction. If I'm, angry or resentful or speaking down, right? Those lower vibrations, as some may say, like more of those that, or even victim way, right? Or blame, or I can put that out there too, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to come back to love, supporting people in their journey. This path is sacred. You are sacred. And all of your listeners, you are so sacred. And when you connect to the sacredness of life, the sacredness of your heart and soul, and you begin to learn kind of the tools of the trade, so to speak, like working with crystals, working with the creating grids with crystals, working with the planetary grid and purifying that to help the ascension of the planet. So it's become this transformation for me. How can I be in service to the planet instead of in service to myself? And so it's this total, as a former mentor of mine used to say, it's like, I've seen you do a 180, then a 360. And it's like, she's watched my transformation, where I used to question more, like, how should I do this? I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And the more I step into my personal power, the more I worry less about how someone else is going to receive me. It's really rare I worry about that anymore, because now I see that as an opportunity, like, oh, you got triggered by something I said. Well, what's happening for you? There's something happening for that person. And it's a teaching moment, or it's a growth moment that is infinite. And so I remind people and myself, where am I today? Be right where I am today, because it can be overwhelming as we transform.
Ah, yes, right indeed. It's right indeed. It's right indeed. It's right. 'Cause sometimes the cocoon may be stronger than you think. With that
Yes.
transformation.
Yeah, we don't want to break out of it.
That's right, indeed. It's like I thought the silk was silk, not steel. Like, what's going on?
Right? Yeah, sometimes that piece, or that some people call it the ego, or because it's a fear that happens of change. Like sometimes our body wants to stay in this place of known experiences, right? And it's like, oh wait, this person's changing, they're breaking out of this paradigm. Oh, they're going to start their own career instead of working in this conventional 9 to 5, and now bosses can't control their employees. Like it shows up in our day to day. Like this is the beautiful piece I see with so many people rediscovering and inventing a new way to connect in their workspace, right? In the way they earn a living. And it's bringing this push for the regular office setting to evolve. And people are learning, like, oh wait, how does this work? And oh wait, we're working just fine remotely or hybrid, or people work more effectively working less hours and get more done. It's like all these things are occurring, and this too is part of that evolution. So I also help people to see the macro and the micro in it, because it shows up in our day-to-day experiences, which is so fascinating to me. And how does one navigate those changes, right? Because fear sets in, right? When you, like you're saying, is that chrysalis still or is it silk? And some people walk through change so easily, right? And others, like you're describing, like they're pounding against that metal and getting nowhere except bruised up, right? So to me, I'm just like, okay, what is in your life that you want to make so hard? And I think of that, is it Staples or something, some office supply, and they're like, let's hit that easy button. Let's hit that easy button.
Ah, that's right, indeed. That was easy, indeed. That's right, indeed. You're getting those gems from the growing Gina, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Gina's got gems, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. She's got gems, indeed. So, my goodness. So, with all this wonderful wisdom you've acquired, you decided to join the business of immortality through the wonderful co author project, indeed. So, my goodness. So, what led to the thought process of finally settling on which story to add to the book?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was such a pivotal role in my life experience and how I evolved and looked at basically getting out of abusive relationship and what it ended up being, right? And then being able to experience the multidimensionality of the entire experience, and looking at myself from a totally different perspective as I walked through it, and seeing my former partner, I guess, was it about a year later? It feels like a year, 2 years later from the incident, was really powerful. But so that was the story that was on my mind the most at the time I was presented with this writing opportunity. And I'm like, well, then I'm going to write about that. And the beautiful piece to it, and I can't speak to everyone that's been in abusive relationships, because everyone's experience with that's been different. But what I was recognizing, like, that over and over again, to be silenced, my feelings didn't matter, that I couldn't say things, which wasn't the case in our earlier on in the relationship. But this is where it started to intensify. And I thought, wow, writing about this is going to give me a space that's safe to do it. I can be mindful. And I had to be concise on, what did I really want this story to be about, this past experience to be about for me. And because it can be so easy for any of us that have gone through an experience to maintain the heated emotions of it, the anger, and to be like, oh, I'd never want to talk to that person again. And where that may be fine, right? And purposeful too. And by no means am I condoning abuse of any kind. I just want to make that clear. I'm not condoning physical, emotional, or every financial abuse. Okay, I'm not condoning any of that. But to have the ability to look back and write about this experience and recognize that all the tools that I've built along the way and cultivated along the way because I was alone. I moved out, I had my dog, but then again, I'm not alone, right? We have all of our spirits, and I had my animal. But at that point, I felt like no friends were around. I lost a lot of connections. Um, but I was able to sit with this and go, wait, I haven't lost anything. I actually gained so much from this experience. And it allowed me to look deeper at myself and how could I change and grow. Because what happened when I got hit in the back of the head by my former partner, and I just knew I was different without sharing the entire story, because you guys can read it if you purchase the book, The Fourfold Formula. And there's a lot of amazing stories in there. But there's something in us called an assemblage point, which is a main energy center to our body. It connects the heart and soul together. It also affects our wellness. So when we're in heightened emotional states, it can also move on its own. So if you're a good, like a happy person, regularly, and you're doing good things, and like it raises, you have a lot of love in your heart, a lot of love inside and outside, giving and receiving, and you're just generally just in a nice sweet spot. That center stays in a healthy place within your body. Now, for anybody, and this can happen to any of us, it moves all the time. Say someone drinks a lot, right? Or they have an addictive behavior, and it doesn't have to be drugs. It could be TV, it could be eating, it could be sex, right? That also can adjust where your assemblage point is in your body. And what I didn't realize at the time, I suffered a concussion. So I started reading a little bit more about the assemblage point later on, well after I wrote the story, and didn't realize that concussions can also lead to depression. So it gave me this other insight to what I was experiencing at the time. And still, I feel there's still pieces of me coming out of that, where I'm like, oh, wow, had no idea. But what happens in the body, the assemblage point gets knocked down. Say like the heart would be the healthy place for the assemblage point to be, right? So if I got knocked, like we can go through actual physical accidents, it can lower in the body or be moved somewhere, and it affects your health and wellness, your mental states. So I went into a brief depression. And so what helped me get out of that, not only just normal, like regular, like clinical therapy, but finding the right person for me, because I also am extremely esoteric and I love my nature and shamanic practices, and that helps our healing and wellness too, just being out in nature, looking at plants. So for me, I had to find the right therapist that understood my way of being and also could bring in their wisdom, so I'm not bypassing certain things, right? And all these different levels of support help me raise that back up. But what happens from a shamanic perspective, sometimes when that energy center gets knocked just slightly, it can alter the way you view the world. And so for me, I felt I just got softer. I got softer and became softer. The way I communicate, the way I speak, the way I'm seeing the world, that like opened up another level to what I was already opening myself up to. But I still had to go through the human experience of it, the physical side, the emotional pieces, recognizing like, oh, wow, okay, when I'm having like a tremor, I would experience tremors in my body. And instead of being afraid of the anxiety that was coming up or the post-traumatic stress piece, I allowed myself to just sit and embrace it and going, oh my God, my body is doing what it's meant to do, because I now feel safe enough to finish processing out what is in my system. So with a recent client of mine because she's experiencing issues of her self feelings. She wants to feel safe and she's having anxiety pop up. It reminded me, like, hey, have you ever considered this perspective that you actually are safe enough that you could even feel anxiety?
Mm.
And she just was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, that's communicating to you. Your body is communicating to you just as much as if when you feel joyful or someone else is happy, you can feel it. It's all communication. So that's what I hope to bridge people to is embrace the way your body communicates because we're very tied into our nervous system. And that is the network of the way our body communicates energetically through our physical body. And when we stay in these heightened emotional states, it affects our physical body, it affects our kidneys, right? Like that's our emotional center. And when I think of our kidneys, I'm thinking of our sacral chakra and the way we have our one-on-one relationships and the relationship with myself. So in writing this story, I realized I had to transcend a lot of different levels in the way I was relating to myself, to that experience, to that relationship, and then also to the person, the experience of being in an abusive relationship and the experience of physically being hit, and then the experience of seeing them face to face, where I was just like surprised in my own way of like how I responded, which was with love, just with love. And I've had other people where they've taken on my experience and go, oh, as if it happened to them. But then I realize it's triggering something else inside them that perhaps their own experience with something else in their own life. So I'm mindful on really talking about it because it's not from a place, a victim place at all. I never felt like a victim, and this isn't to take away from anyone's experience by any means because yes, on paper as a victim in a crime, an assault, but what I didn't live that way, right? There's a multiple things that I had to look at on the decisions I made after, especially while I was too in an emotional state, like what's going to be the highest, best decision for my highest good, but also the highest good for everybody involved. So I went to this place where even though as I knew the relationship was getting really tumultuous, especially while we were living together, I would go outside and my mantra became just keep my heart open. Just keep my heart open. And I had to go. It assisted me to go to this place and go, okay, there's kids involved. Is this person actually really should be defined by this one moment? And it was like, no. Did I still take care of myself? Because I also had to be concerned with my own career. I was still in law enforcement at the time. And that makes me a mandated reporter. So there's all these different things that I had to go through in reporting and saying no. Like now I totally got this other end of like getting a phone call to bail someone out that harmed me. And I had to say, I said no. And that was the hardest thing to do because it's someone that I love and still do. But to be able to go, okay, no, I had to make the highest choice for myself because I needed to separate completely so I could preserve my well-being, the roof over my head, things like that, like the basic need sort of thing. But I could have gone further. This is getting a lot of backstory, which I think is helpful for those that will read the book and the story. Um, I didn't pursue the updating of the report with the concussion because those can show up later. I didn't know that with concussions, they can show up like a week later. They're signs, and I couldn't stand on. I could stumble. I couldn't stand on one foot. It was loss of focus, things like different things, starting to feel depressed. I couldn't be in crowds. different experiences, like a lot more anxiety was happening. And but still within that, I decided to do nothing else. And that person, that soul level, on a soul level, this is where the higher self comes in, you guys, because I'm still having that personal human experience. But I had to go deeper. I had to go deeper and go, why would I choose to pursue the criminal aspect? Would it be from anger? Would it be from vengeance? Would it be just because I could? Or would it give me what I really wanted, which is to no longer be involved with any of it and to be free of our connection? And that's where I went to. I'm like, I will no longer pursue updating the report because I want to be free of it. It would have connected me even further down this other rabbit hole. And I went to a place, I like, everyone this is already impacted that I'm not even aware of is already experiencing some level of suffering. And so is the soul, that other person that I had the relationship with. I'm witnessing all these different things of their own suffering through my eyes. I would call it suffering. And where I'm just like, I'm not going to add more to that. I got out safe. I did what I needed to do. The rest can be on the judicial system if they proceeded to do their end of it, and then I could just be done. And so that's what I'm talking about, to get to that higher state of consciousness within myself and go, what good is it for the highest good of everybody, not just me? And so I pursued nothing else other than just making the report. And it was the best decision I know, even to this day, that I made, because people went through enough just to have that experience. And I can't speak for other people that were involved. I can only speak for myself, but I can feel it, right? We can feel each other. And this is, I attest that ability to go to that place, to choose to do nothing else, through all the training I had, through my spiritual practices, through my shamanic practices, through the self-mastery practice, and really being like, is this for the highest good? Is this for the highest good? And to go past my emotions. And that's not always easy, because people can hold on to their anger and go, yeah, but they deserve this. Do they really? Because if I'm causing more harm to that other being, then I'm also causing more harm to myself. And this isn't to say that people don't have reason to be arrested and kept in jail or prison, because that also too, they have to take responsibility for their choices in life. But I also have to take responsibility in how can I show compassion and love in all the circumstances, for myself, for others' choices and things like that. And I really feel my background in law enforcement also helped me to do that as well. Because, we used to have to update the registration for sex offenders and things like that. And everybody had their own way of supporting that person as they came into the counter. And for me, I always reminded myself, these people have families too. I'm not condoning what their choices were in life, because it forever impacts another being and harms another person and families. But they also too work, and they're on a soul level. They're going through their soul experience, and I could still show love and compassion and not perpetuate their own suffering or criminalization of another person, while still holding clear boundary, and to do my level of work with the most integrity possible. And I know that's hard for some people to hear too, because it may trigger a lot of you potentially, or you might know someone or have your own experiences. But I really invite you to dig deeper if you're feeling that trigger, to be like, how is that supporting you to hold on to the resentment and anger within you? And there's a possible opportunity for your own healing from your own experiences, which in turn also heal other people, even those that have harmed you. And I share this because what I witnessed in my own experience in this story, um, I reference the two children, I don't name them, and I didn't get to see them ever again. And then one day, and I have no doubt this is the depths of how also healing and energy works, right? Because since I wasn't working at the police department anymore, my schedule changed. So I was walking my dog later in the mornings, and I would see them ride their bikes to school. And I kept seeing them, and none of us would acknowledge each other. And then finally, one day, I'm like, that's enough. I love these children. I had been in their lives since they were in grade school. And I'm just saying hi. There's no reason why I can't say hi. So I said hi. And I just felt like this, all of us, like I just felt them just go, like this breath of air just got released. Instead of, it takes so much energy to ignore someone that you care about or even that you know. And that is when the synchronicities kept happening. Once I said hello, it released this opening, this energetic release, like the universe heard it. Go, okay, it's like, to me, I'm like, oh, she's ready to see her now. Like that's what I felt for myself. She's ready to heal this for herself. And in healing it for myself, it frees other people. It allows people to remember the good times, right? Because there were far more good times than what occurred, because there were so many other elements that I was witnessing, emotional states, possible mental health occurring, and heightened states of stress that can come out sideways for any of us when we're at components of stress, right? So again, not condoning the choice of abuse, but there's things that get layered on, right? But it freed us. And then all of a sudden I would see her car drive by. And then there was another time where I'm walking in the street and her car would drive by again. And then I'm like, okay, it's coming. I just knew spirit, in their magical way of the universe and divine intervention or healing, was preparing me and us to be face to face. And it was all because I was ready to start saying hi and open up that communication just a little bit. Not to rekindle anything, but it was just like, you can say hi when you see me. It's okay. Like, I'm not harboring these feelings of anger or anything, and I never was. If anything, in my own self reflection and contemplation, the only person I was really ever mad at looking at back at anything, and I remember even sharing this with my former partner, was myself. Because earlier on, I said no to the relationship. In the very beginning, I said no, not like this. And then later on, I decided to pursue it. And so when I look back, I'm like, gosh, if I had stuck to my intuition, this is where our intuition becomes so important. Had I honored that piece, I wouldn't have gone through this experience. I'm not discrediting the experience because I believe it's given me so much. But I remember that moment when I said no, and then I said yes, and it was a totally different experience. So I really honor your intuition. This is about stepping into your personal power. And this is something else where I assist people in, is stepping into their personal power and trusting your intuition, because the red flags, or we'll just say flags, are always there. You know, the go ahead's always there, and the pause is there, and also, nope, not this way, go this way. Those are always there. And somehow we talk ourselves out of it or into something. And it was really important for me to not be guilty about that choice and have any self blame or anything, and just be like, okay, soul, my soul learned something. This is where I didn't detach from the experience per se, but when I can go into that higher self and stay in the higher vibrational way of looking at the cards laid out and how I participated in creating this experience, it's a total game changer. So then when I come back to the story that I chose to write, I look at it again and I reread it again before I came on today, Dom, and I even resonate with it in a different way. Like the emotional triggers aren't there for me as I read it. I feel the magic in it. I feel the magic in it and have this other level of understanding of what it means when people truly understand and become like that namaste, that I see the light in you, I see the soul in you, and not in a way that discredits their human experience, but to be able to honor both, because it's not just black and white. We are multi-dimensional beings, and when we're connecting with our soul and our higher self, it's multidimensional, as people call it. Oh, it's your diamond, right? Some people refer to like your diamonds. And diamonds have multifacets. You can look at them and the fractures of light coming in and out, and recognizing that we're all light. You are light. And all these experiences, it's drawing us out to be our light, to be our pure self, to be our soul, to connect with source. And so for me, that became what this story was, is like, oh, wow, I stepped further into my light. It jolted my soul awake in another level, like this soul shock, to release some deeper patterns in me, which I didn't really write in the story because we only have so much space, but of like changing my relationships of like codependency, going more into sovereignty, that I'm already whole within myself. And so now I have no doubt when the next relationship I'm in, it's going to be totally different, because I will seek a partner and call in a partner. I don't have to seek anything. Just call in a partner that is sovereign in themselves, that doesn't need anything from me, and I don't need anything from them, and we just love. It'll have this other level of just transcendence, and to be able to embrace each other for who we are and who we see each other as, and not with any expectation of you of completing me. I'm already whole in myself, and I want to continue to be that and hold that space for my friends, my acquaintances, future partner, my pets, my animals, right? Like all of it, life, right? A tree's just a tree. I can't ask it to be anything else, you know? So if I needed trees in my life, then call in trees. If I need a dog in my life, I call in the dog, right? If I need loving friends, I call in my loving friends that we know how to meet each other, right? And so that's what starts to happen too. And I'm just like, wow, thank you for this clear, clean slate, that now I get to create my world in a way that will just continue to unfold before me as I keep choosing these now moments and not worry about tomorrow in the way that I used to. And let go of any sense of control, right? Because that's a tough one.
Oh yeah, definitely
Yeah.
toughie indeed. That's
So
right
I hope
indeed.
that answers your question on how I came to write this story, and give you guys some background a little bit too. I think is helpful.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. You heard of fellows sliding to her DMs after the interview. Let me stop.
Are you really? Do people have questions?
uh, well, occasion, on occasion, on occasion. But hey, might as well put that out there. That's right, D. You never know who could hear. Since it's
Never
big, it's a
know.
big, wide world indeed.
It
It's definitely
is.
good sharing those experiences too, especially instead of having the PhD, having the PhE, the personal human experience decide to share into the world. Be like, hey, that's right, indeed. This is part of me that happened, and this is the transformation that took place afterwards. And you're in a place now where it's like, hey, you can actually go back and read that story and not have to feel as much pain or even be triggered as much reading it now as opposed to, well, I guess a few months, almost a year ago before the book is actually finally published now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think even as I wrote it too, it of course it conjured up some things, but I had already done so much processing before that it was just really, it was timely. It was time. And I was able to give more like reclaim my voice through
Ah, that's right indeed. 'Cause it's a great voice and is glad that you have it. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Folks need to hear more of it indeed. So my goodness, a fun question we're loving to ask fabulous fellow authors, especially folks in this book. So if this wonderful book, The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness, if it was a food, what would it be and why?
it. If it was a food, all things wellness was a food. And why? Oh, that's a good question. Interesting. I think of paella for some reason because there's just like this whole mixture of different seafoods and sauce and flavor, and you could be creative with it. But that's what I would describe the fourfold formula as, this beautiful paella and mixture of people's experiences that hopefully spark something in others to support them and be like, oh wow, I didn't, and grow. But that's what I would say. It's a lovely experience.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right. The powerful paella. That's right indeed. All the sauces from the different stores, all the spices. That's right indeed. The seafood. That's right
Mhm.
indeed. That food for the soul, y'all. That's right indeed. Different stories. Indeed. That's right indeed. That's right. You too can overcome past situations and tribulations, y'all. That's right. You can do it. That's right. You can make your own story out of it. That's right indeed. One day be like Gina. Publish your story in a book. Share with others so they too can overcome. Get those six pack abs with confidence. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Then again, you can do a drum circle with your own abs, maybe.
Yes, you could. It'd be like the washboard, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Wash,
right.
wash, wash. Get a little jug. All instruments are welcome in the circle. Mm.
uh, there we go. That's right indeed. If you got a trumpet, pull out the trumpet. If you got a tuba, you can pull that out too. That's right indeed.
Mhm.
If you got the world's smallest violin, save that for the streets and the orchestra. Let me stop. Oh man.
Oh, that's funny.
So what's next for you, Gina?
What's next for me? That's a great question. Well, I am submitting a second story because it's a series, and the second story is to the second book of the three of. I think she's calling it, the acronym is WAR, but when we are responsible. So I will submit a second story there. And then I'm also creating a coaching program that I call the Planetary Logos. And those are for people that feel inspired or more like starseed, soul, or their soul's calling to learn how to transmute and transfigure, basically like what I'm talking about, and be able to hold that space for the planet as things are being like deconstructing, right? We need to also learn how to transform and do the alchemy tools to purify those new things coming forward. And also not to take, like, as we take things, learn to use the vehicle of the body to transform and to bring things back into light. And that's exactly what my experience was. I feel a pivotal moment for me to continue to bring it to light. Yes, it can be a pile of the poop, right? How do I change that poop into something light, right? That's going to feed us, that's going to nurture us, that's going to help pave the way to birthing a new earth. So if you want, sign up on my email at soulinspiredreflections.com, And if you feel called to some one-on-one coaching, feel free to reach out. And I have a free consultation for 30 minutes for discovery call. And you could sign up for that directly on my website. And I'm be happy to talk to you and how I can support you build your foundational skills, because that's where I really feel people need the most support right now as they're waking up. Um, to have some foundational skills in nature connection, connecting with your higher self, grounding, and that alchemy tool of the violet flame, at least, can really go a long way into your spiritual practices and daily practices, and to make it organic to you. So the best way to stay apprised of that is to sign up for my email list.
Ah, so sounds like she's gonna be back for round two, baby.
I am
That's
going to
right.
be back.
That's right indeed. She'll be back for round two. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. The story continues. The book series continues. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It's gonna be fun on all the buns. That's right. That's right indeed. Bring the honey. Bring the butter. Bring the Kleenexes. That's right. That's right. Bring all of
Mhm.
it. That's right indeed.
Yeah.
That's right indeed. So, my goodness, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in 2022, what advice would you give to yourself?
It's always a great question. My advice, just go have fun, be adventurous, be spontaneous, be spontaneous. Say yes to more things.
Ah, there you have it, folks. That's right, indeed. Say yes to more things, y'all. That's right, indeed. Say that yes to yourself, y'all. That's right. Go out, hug a tree, talk to it. That's right, indeed.
Yeah.
That's right, indeed. Get into the forest, get lost in it. Just not too
Mm,
lost, though. We need you to come back now. Don't get too
yeah.
lost in the
You're right. We need you to come back.
forest.
Go on a nice wander. Those little individual quests can
Oh,
be
yeah.
powerful.
That's right, indeed. Powerful indeed. That's right. You'll come out as a bush monster if you stay there too long, y'all. That's right. So don't do that. That's right. Be like, hey, I can't see the forest. All these darn trees in the way. Like, ah.
That is so funny. It happens to some people.
That's right. That's right, indeed. She's got proof. She's got those. One of those she can't confirm or deny situations here if she's seen the bush monster for certain humans who stayed in the forest for too long.
That's so funny.
I'll never stop it. Hey, folks need to get into the forest of your wonderful enchantment. So once again, for the folks who need to keep up with your journey and follow you and all that good stuff, and even tune into your radio show as well, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Yep. You can email me at Gina at soulinspiredreflections.com. You can also go to my website at soulinspiredreflections.com and sign up. You can also read some of the blogs I have posted, and feel free to reach out to me. I do have some podcasts on there too through the Transformation Network, where I talk about ascension, a humble awakening of the heart. And we latest two episodes have been deeper dives into Lady Gaia and working with power animals and the earth. So feel free to check any of those out and reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you guys about different things: ascension, ascended masters, earth-based things. I can understand multiple languages in that sense of our soul evolution. So again, soulinspiredreflections.com. I'd love to hear from you and connect.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. That's right, indeed. That's Solar Spot Solutions, baby. So you heard that right, folks. That's right, indeed. If you're enchanted by the wonderful, glamorous Gina today, then follow her on the journey. Subscribe to her email list, indeed. Turn it to all of her marvelous podcasts. Get your nature spirit on, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And be on the lookout for round two. That's right. She's got
Yeah,
something else to add, too, I bet.
I do. When you do sign up, you do get a complimentary guided meditation when you sign up to the email list.
Ah, there you go. So that's right. So next level enchantment. So there you go. So if you enjoyed hearing her for the past hour and some change, you get to hear even more of her. Guide you through a meditation, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right, indeed. You'll come out as a giant platinum statue. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
It's funny.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, any parting words before we close up shop, Gina?
Oh, any part, just love each other. It's so much easier to love than it is anything else. The more you love, the more you can receive it.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast to do something that'll take yourself to the next level. And for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can not only catch the fire that is on this podcast, but can also be inspired to be their best. Advance others to advance yourself.